I always thought of myself as someone practical about love. I never believed in love at first sight or meant to be. I used to tell my friends that a lasting relationship had to be built on trust, patience, and mutual effort. But then Mike showed up, and everything I thought I knew was swept away. That night at the bar, I only planned to stay for a drink and head home early. I wasn't the kind of girl who enjoyed parties or late nights out. But then Mike walked up, handed me a cocktail, and struck up a conversation so effortlessly that I felt comfortable right away. There was something about the way he looked at me. It wasn't just polite listening, it was as if he truly saw me. For the first time in years, I felt noticed. From that night on, Mike didn't disappear like most guys. He texted, he called, he asked me out, but never in a way that felt pushy. He had this balance close enough so I felt cared for, but never smothering. I remember one night when it was pouring rain. I walked out of work exhausted, and there he was, standing under a tiny umbrella, drenched to the bone. He smiled, held out a warm takeout box, and said, "I figured you'd be too busy to eat." I cried right there on the sidewalk. Loving Mike came quickly, but gently enough for me to trust it. When I brought him home to meet my family, my parents were thrilled, and my younger sister, Lily, was beyond excited. She teased me about snagging a catch and spent the whole evening chatting with him. I thought she was just being her usual, friendly self. Over the next 3 years, Mike and I built memories that felt like forever. We got lost on the subway during our first trip abroad and ended up laughing over street food instead of fighting. He held me in silence when I broke down after failing my first grad school interview, and when I finally got accepted the following year, he was the loudest one cheering. When Mike proposed, it felt like the peak of everything. He chose the fountain in the square where he first held my hand. He knelt down, his hands trembling as he held out a simple ring. I didn't even need to think. Tears streamed down my face before I could whisper yes. The whole square erupted in applause as I threw my arms around him. I was certain this was the man I was meant to marry. My family was overjoyed. My parents called every relative to brag. Friends sent gifts and congratulations. And Lily, she was just as excited as I was. She grinned and said, "Don't worry, I'll be the best maid of honor ever. I've already got Pinterest boards full of ideas for your dress." Watching her, I felt nothing but gratitude. The weeks leading up to the wedding were a blur of planning. Guest lists, dress fittings, catering, photographers, playlists. I wanted everything perfect, not just for me, but for both families. At first, Mike was all in, but little by little, he pulled away. He came home late, sometimes claiming he was working overnight. When I asked, he brushed it off with a tired smile. "Just busy." Don't worry, and I wanted to believe him. I told myself I was just stressed from wedding prep, that I didn't want to turn into the clingy fiancé. So, I chose trust until the message arrived. That night, I was sitting on the floor surrounded by stacks of unsent invitations, sketching a seating chart, when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. The message read, "You're about to marry a cheater. He's seeing someone else." My heart clenched. My hands shook as I scrolled down to the attached photo. Mike, sitting in our favorite cafe, kissing another woman. The world stopped. My stomach turned. I wanted to scream, to delete the picture, to unsee it, but my eyes wouldn't move. Everything I trusted shattered. That night, when Mike came home, I threw my phone on the table. "Explain this." My voice barely made it out. He stood there, silent. Too long. And then, instead of denying it, instead of fighting for us, he lowered his head and said, "I'm sorry. I messed up. I've been seeing someone." It felt like the ground gave out beneath me. No tears from him, no begging, just flimsy excuses, work pressure, weakness. Each word stabbed deeper. The next morning, I cancelled the wedding. No hesitation. Deposits, invitations, months of planning, none of it mattered. I refused to marry a liar. A few weeks later, Mike left town. Said he had a new job, but I knew he was running. I didn't try to stop him. Why would I? There was nothing left worth saving. After that, I sank into a fog. Each morning, I'd wake up with a brief moment of peace, before the memory hit me like a truck. The betrayal crushed me again and again. I cycled through anger, denial, self-pity, despair. Some nights I'd sit frozen for hours, staring at the engagement ring still sitting on my desk. Friends tried to cheer me up. My parents begged me to come home for dinner. Lily held my hand and whispered, "You deserve someone better." "Mike's not worth it." I believed her. She was my anchor. Slowly, I pulled myself together. I buried myself in work and school. I told myself this pain would one day be nothing but a scar, reminder of how strong I could be. I thought I had already hit rock bottom. I thought nothing could hurt more, but life had other plans. Months later, Lily called me home, her voice bubbling with excitement. "You have to come, I've got huge news." I never could have imagined her big news would be my worst nightmare. Lily was getting married, and her fiancé was Mike. That afternoon, Lily called me, her voice bubbling with excitement. "Come home tonight. We're having a family dinner. I've got huge news, you're going to be shocked." For a moment, I actually felt happy for her. I thought maybe Lily had finally found someone special, someone good enough to make her glow like that. A small part of me even felt relieved after everything I had been through. At least my family could have some new joy to celebrate. When I walked into the house, the living room was set up like a celebration. Flowers on the table, wine glasses ready. My parents sat on the couch, grinning from ear to ear. Lily appeared in a pastel blue dress, lips painted red, her eyes sparkling. My chest tightened. She looked radiant, almost like a bride. Not my little sister. Before I could say anything, the doorbell rang. Lily rushed to answer it, and in the very next second, my world collapsed for the second time. Standing there was Mike. White dress shirt, a bouquet of flowers in his arms. His eyes flicked toward me, just a flicker of discomfort, then steadied. "Hey," he said softly. I froze. I looked from Lily to Mike, to my parents' smiling faces. The whole scene spun like a nightmare I couldn't wake from. "Surprised, sis?" Lily beamed, looping her arm around his. Her voice danced with pride. "Mike and I, we're engaged. We're getting married next month." My body gave out, and I dropped into a chair. Cold spread through me like ice water. My mouth opened, but no words came. Only one question screamed in my head. Why? My parents clapped, their joy spilling over. My mum turned to me, glowing. "See, honey, fate works in strange ways." We thought the chapter was closed, but now Mike is back in the family, just in a different way. I'm so happy for Lily. I shot to my feet. "Do you even know what he did to me?" My voice cracked with rage and grief. The room went dead silent. My parents exchanged glances, their smiles fading, but not with shock. Of course, we know, my dad said slowly. But that's in the past. You and Mike weren't right for each other. Now he and Lily are. All that matters is their happiness. I staggered back, tears spilling before I realized it. And what about me? What about my happiness, my pain? Doesn't that matter? My mum stepped closer, laid a hand on my shoulder, her tone soft, almost patronizing. Sweetheart, you have to let go. Life doesn't always turn out the way we want. What matters is family, unity, a good future for your sister. You're strong, you'll survive. I jerked away from her touch like it burned. My own family, the people I thought would stand beside me, were now standing with the man who betrayed me and the sister who took him. Lily clung to Mike, still smiling, unbothered. When our eyes met, she didn't look away. Instead, I saw a spark of triumph in her gaze, as if to say, he chose me, not you. My blood ran cold. The days after felt like living as a ghost in my own home. My parents buzzed with wedding excitement, dresses, venues, menus, guest lists, just as they had once done for me. Even the details matched. The riverside restaurant, the string quartet, the white and blue flower arrangements. Only now, it was as if I'd been erased, replaced by Lily. I tried to protest. One night, I sat across from my parents and said flatly, I can't do this. I can't attend a wedding where the groom used to be my fiancé. My dad sighed, his tone sharp. This is Lily's choice. You don't get a say. If you refuse, you'll humiliate the entire family in front of our relatives. Is that what you want, to be selfish? I stared at him, stunned. He had never spoken to me like that. And Lily? She just smiled, gently squeezing my hand as if she were the kind one. I know this is hard, sis. But love, you can't control it. Mike and I were the real thing. I hope you can be happy for us. Happy for you. I wanted to scream. I wanted to wipe that smug smile off her face. But when I looked into her eyes, I saw something darker. This wasn't just love. It was possession. It was the thrill of taking what had once been mine. This wasn't coincidence. Lily wanted this. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. My mind replayed every moment Lily had comforted me, whispered that Mike wasn't worth it. Had she already known back then? Had she been laughing inside while I cried? Revulsion churned in my stomach. I realized I'd been betrayed twice. Once by the man I loved, and once by my own sister. As the wedding drew near, my parents pushed me to try on bridesmaid dresses. I refused. My mum sobbed, calling me selfish, insisting sisters should support each other. My dad slammed the table, threatening to cut me off completely if I didn't cooperate. I felt like an outsider in my own bloodline. The people I loved most had turned into strangers. One evening, I overheard Lily whispering in the kitchen with Mum. Don't worry, Mum, I'll be happy. Mike told me she never understood him. Only I truly get him. My mum laughed softly, stroking her hair. That's right. You deserve this. Your sister is strong, she'll be fine. You're the one who needs protecting. I stood frozen in the hallway, each word slicing me open. From that moment, I knew I couldn't just stand by and watch them take everything from me. I wouldn't let Lily walk down the aisle with Mike as if I never existed. A thought sparked, sharp and dangerous. There's more to this. Mike didn't leave me just because he was weak. And Lily didn't fall in love by chance. There had to be a truth buried underneath, and I was going to uncover it. From the moment I discovered the truth, I felt like a ghost wandering through my own life. Each morning I woke up and needed a few seconds to remember where I was and what had happened. Sometimes I wished it was all a nightmare, that when I opened my eyes I would still be the fiancé, still have a family standing by me. But no. Every time I glanced at the engagement ring lying cold on my vanity, I knew the nightmare was real and there was no escape. I was no longer myself. I stopped laughing, stopped making jokes at the dinner table, stopped texting friends to go to the movies. People noticed the change, but no one really cared beyond a few perfunctory questions. You okay? Yeah, I'm fine. And then everyone moved on, as if my pain were their private problem to avoid. In my panic, I decided I had to see Mike one more time. I needed to hear it from his own mouth. I set up a meeting at the cafe where we'd celebrated birthdays and where he'd once proposed to me with flickering candles. How ironic that I now sat in the same place waiting for him to confess. He arrived looking thinner than before. I couldn't bring myself to care. I watched him sit, spine straight, face calm while a storm raged behind his eyes. Do you have anything to say to me? My voice was hoarse. Mike was quiet. He stared at his coffee and tapped the rim with a finger. Finally, he exhaled like someone dropping a heavy weight. I'm sorry. I didn't mean for this to go so far. But Lily and I, we love each other. I can't go back. I froze. Part of me still hoped he would say, I made a mistake. I'll stop. I choose you. But he didn't. He had chosen Lily without hesitation. I forced out a bitter laugh, a lump in my throat. You love my sister. The same sister you used to hold my hand in front of and call future sister. Don't you feel disgusting? Mike recoiled, eyes darting around. I stood up and tossed a single word back at him, coward. Then I walked away, leaving him to sit in the darkness of the choice he called love. But the pain of facing Lily was worse. We still lived under the same roof, still ate the same meals, but between us there was now an unbridgeable chasm. My mother often forced us to sit and eat together, pretending nothing was wrong while both Lily and I choked on our food. Once, in the middle of a dinner, Lily suddenly burst into tears and dropped her chopsticks. Sis, I'm sorry. I know I was wrong, but I can't stop loving him. I don't know what to do. I looked at my sister, the one I used to protect, the one I'd give my new dress to, the one I'd shield in little ways. Now she stood there crying and apologizing while brazenly stealing my entire world. Tears fell from my eyes, but I didn't soften. A sour smile cut my face. You love him. What about me? What about family? Have you thought about my feelings at all, or is it all about you? Lily bowed her head and sobbed. My mother immediately wrapped her arms around her, cooing, Stop crying, honey. It's already happened. You have a right to be happy. I stared, dumbfounded, watching my mother cradle my little sister, while refusing to look at me, the one who had been robbed of everything. My father sat silent, his gaze turned away. That silence hurt more than 1,000 words. I began to understand that in this story I had not only lost a man, but also lost the support called family. They had chosen Lily. They stood with her and Mike, and I became the extra one, labeled selfish for refusing to forgive. The breaking point came one evening when I accidentally overheard a conversation in the living room. I was on the stairs when I stopped, hearing my mother say, "We should hold the wedding for Lily and Mike soon, before people start talking. And she can be a bridesmaid. She won't want to embarrass the family. I stood there, frozen, gripping the banister until my knuckles bled. I couldn't believe my ears. Not only had they betrayed me, but they wanted to make me a witness to that betrayal, to make me put on a bridesmaid dress and toss a bouquet for the man who had been my fiancé. That night, I lay in the dark with my pillow wet from tears. For the first time in my life, I felt truly alone. But in that absolute pain, I swore to myself, I would not be silent. If they wanted a perfect wedding, I would turn it into a nightmare. If they wanted me to smile, I would use that smile to expose everything. Their day of happiness would become the day the truth was laid bare, and I would be the one to do it. As Lily's wedding day approached, the tighter my chest felt, as if something was squeezing the life out of me. I didn't want to go. I swore I never wanted to set foot in that place. But my father held to his threat. If I refused to attend, he would cut off all support for my graduate studies next year. My mother called me constantly, crying and pleading that I go for the sake of family. For appearances, I felt cornered, forced to become a witness to a farce they dared to call true love. In the end, I agreed, but inside I had a different plan. If they wanted me there, I would be there, but I wouldn't sit quietly, wouldn't smile and pretend, wouldn't cheer for this filthy play. I would speak the truth, in front of the very people they begged me to save face for. The wedding took place in a lavish banquet hall, decorated with white and blue flowers, exactly the theme I had once planned for my own wedding. Every step I took inside cut into my heart like a knife. They had stolen my ideas, my dream, and turned them into reality for Lily and Mike. I wore the bridesmaid dress my mother forced onto me and stood beside Lily. My sister glowed in her pure white gown, lips curved in radiant joy. Mike looked sharp in his suit, his gaze fixed on her. They looked like a fairy tale couple, but only I knew the truth hiding behind those smiles. Throughout the ceremony, I felt like a ghost. Every eye was on Lily and Mike, every toast and blessing poured over them. I just stood there, silent, holding back my tears at the reception. When the glasses were full and the guests were laughing loudly, the MC invited me onto the stage. Let's welcome the bride's sister, the maid of honor, to say a few words to the newlyweds. I held the microphone, feeling the whole room fall silent in anticipation. I had prepared a short, harmless speech to start with, so no one would suspect. Smiling, I said a few polite words about the joy of the day and the happiness of the couple. The hall erupted in applause, the atmosphere still glowing. But then I paused. I looked directly at Mike, then at Lily. My heart pounded, but a force inside me pushed forward. I hope, I began, my voice dropping low. Everyone here knows that behind these smiles, this is not a fairy tale. The entire hall froze. Whispers rippled through the crowd. I want everyone to know that the groom, Mike, was once my fiancé. We were engaged for 2 years, together for 5. But 3 months before our wedding, I discovered he betrayed me. And the person he betrayed me with is none other than today's bride, my own sister. A loud gasp swept through the hall. I heard glasses shatter, small cries of shock. Lily's face drained of color, her lips trembling. Mike tried to keep composed, but panic flickered in his eyes. I continued, tears streaming but voice steady. Yes, while I was still planning my wedding, still loving and trusting him, they were sneaking behind my back. They, and even my parents, kept this secret from me for a year. And then they expected me to come here today, wear a bridesmaid dress, and smile as they celebrated. Tell me, is that true love, or just raw betrayal dressed in roses? The guests erupted in murmurs. I saw familiar faces, aunts, uncles, old friends, looking around, whispering in shock, some even in outrage. I set the microphone down, not waiting for a response, and walked off the stage. Behind me I heard my mother screaming my name, my father shouting in anger, Lily sobbing. But I never turned back. I left the hall, the doors closing behind me, leaving chaos to explode inside, outside. The fresh air rushed against my face. I took a deep breath, a strange lightness filling my chest. For the first time in months, I felt truly free. The wedding day arrived. From early morning, my parents' house was filled with the sounds of laughter, curtains being drawn, and the click of high heels on the floor. Everyone rushed around, preparing for what they called the big day, the day they believed would wash away all rumors, and prove that Lily and Mike were the perfect couple. As for me, I stood in front of the mirror, wearing the bridesmaid dress Lily had shoved into my hands a few days earlier. A sweet pastel pink, elegant and radiant. But to me it felt no different than morning clothes. I looked at myself, dark circles under my eyes, a hollow face, and a bitter smile. This isn't me. This is just a body dragged here to decorate their fake happiness. When the ceremony began, the air was heavy with flowers, candles, and music. Guests laughed and chatted cheerfully. Everything looked perfect, painfully perfect. I sat quietly among the rows of chairs, watching Lily walk down the aisle in her white dress. Her face glowed with joy, but to me, that smile was nothing but a lie. Mike stood waiting at the end, staring at her as if he had never betrayed anyone in his life. My heart pounded as I clutched the folded note in my hand. Words I had rehearsed all week felt like a bomb inside me, waiting to go off. The priest's voice rang out, then came the vows. Mike said, "I promise to love you forever." Lily replied, "I promise to be faithful and love you all my life." The crowd clapped, moved to tears, but I only felt sick. Then came the reception. I was invited on stage as the bride's sister, the maid of honor standing under the lights, hundreds of eyes on me. I took a deep breath. My hand trembled holding the microphone, but my voice was clear. "Hello, everyone. I'm Lily's sister, and I was also once Mike's fiancé." The room fell silent. Whispers rippled through the crowd. I continued, "Maybe some of you don't know this, but before standing here with my sister, Mike once proposed to me. We planned a wedding right here in this very place, but 3 months before it was supposed to happen, I discovered he had betrayed me. With my own sister, gasps and murmurs spread like fire. Lily's face turned pale, lips trembling. Mike flushed red, trying to stay composed, but his eyes gave away panic. I looked straight at them, my words dropping heavy like stones. They lied to all of you. They hid the truth that this relationship began with betrayal, with secret meetings behind my back. And worse, my parents knew about it, yet they still covered for them, still forced me to attend, to smile, to help hide this disgrace. The room erupted in noise. Some gasped in shock, others stood up, glaring at Lily and Mike with disgust. I put down the microphone, looked at Lily, the sister I once loved, and Mike, the man I once thought I'd marry. Then I said one final line, "Good luck to you both," because happiness built on betrayal never lasts. I turned and walked off the stage, the sound of my heels echoing in the tense hall. Behind me, I heard my mother cry out, my father yell, Lily sob. But I didn't look back. I walked out, leaving chaos behind me. Outside, cool air brushed my face. The sky stretched wide and blue. I inhaled deeply, as if shedding a massive weight. For the first time in months, I felt truly free. I knew from that moment I no longer had a family the way I once did. My parents would be furious, Lily would hate me, Mike would blame me. But I had no regrets. I had reclaimed my voice. I had refused to be a silent witness to betrayal in the days that followed. Everything unfolded as expected. My phone buzzed non-stop with angry messages. My parents cursed me, Lily accused me, Mike stayed silent. And yet, I wasn't afraid anymore. Strangely, I felt lighter because finally the truth was out. Some relatives texted me in support. A few old friends reached out, saying they were proud of me for speaking up. Most importantly, I realized something. Healing doesn't require forgiveness from the betrayers. It only requires standing up for yourself. I lost a man, I lost a family, but I found myself again. From then on, I cut off my parents' financial control, found part-time work, and prepared to chase my dream of grad school on my own terms. The road ahead might be hard, but at least it was mine. No one could take it away anymore. As for Lily and Mike, I don't know what became of them. Maybe they'll fall apart, maybe they'll keep living in a fabricated happiness. But I no longer care. My story doesn't end with whether they face karma or not. It ends with me walking out of the shadows, facing the truth, and speaking it out loud, and that, for me, was the greatest victory of all. I left the wedding amid whispers behind my back, and the cold night seeped deep into my bones. It felt as if the whole world had shut down, leaving only me and my heavy steps on the wet stone pavement. When the door closed behind me, I felt as though I had just escaped a suffocating cage I had been forced to live in for a year. Yet that freedom offered no relief. It felt like being thrown into a storm with nothing to hold on to. I collapsed onto an empty step outside the church, trembling, trying to hold back my tears, but the harder I tried, the more they flowed. Everything I had believed in love, family, fairness shattered right before my eyes. My phone kept buzzing in my pocket, each notification a familiar name. Mum, Dad, Lily, Mike. I didn't dare answer. I feared that just one word would make me crumble right there. My best friend Emma was the only person I could call. A weak hello from me was all it took for her to know I was on the edge. She didn't ask questions, only said, "Sit tight. I'm coming." When her car pulled up, I broke down like a child. She wrapped her arms around me and didn't say a word. She just let me cry until there was nothing left. Perhaps, of all people, Emma was the only support I had left. The days that followed brought the real storm. My family didn't stay silent. On the contrary, they attacked me in every possible way. Calls never stopped coming, filled with accusations, selfish, disgrace to the family, destroyer. My mother screamed over the phone that I had ruined my sister's happy day. In her voice, I heard anger, shame, but not a trace of concern. No one ever asked, "Are you okay?" My father was different, cold, almost indifferent. In a face-to-face meeting, he looked at me with a heavy gaze and said, "Family comes first. You should know better than to speak out. You've made things far worse." I looked at him, the man who had held my hand to school, who had told me I deserved the best, and felt a cold emptiness. I realized then that I had lost my place in my own family. I moved out of the old apartment, the one that held too many memories with Mike. I rented a small room in a modest neighborhood where neighbors hardly knew me. The old walls, cracked ceiling, and creaky windows were strange comforts. At least there, I could cry without being overheard, stay silent without being called cold. At first, adapting was hard. Some mornings, I would sit on the bed for hours, doing nothing, feeling hollow. I wondered if I deserved this. Was I really selfish, petty, as my parents said? But every time I thought of Mike holding Lily's hand in front of me, or Lily's messages insisting, "You should bless me," a quiet rage would flare. No, I didn't deserve that betrayal. I began keeping a journal. At first, just short notes. I felt sad today. I cried a lot today. But gradually, I wrote longer entries, delving into the pain, the memories, the betrayal that once felt suffocating. Writing helped me release it, as if every word carried away a piece of my anger. I remember one night, after writing several pages, I looked up and smiled. It wasn't a happy smile, but it was a beginning of reclaiming myself. Meanwhile, news of Lily and Mike reached me through mutual friends. Just weeks after the wedding, they were constantly fighting. Lily was jealous without reason. Mike went out secretly, citing work. Once, a friend told me Lily cried in front of everyone over suspicions of Mike's hidden affairs. I felt nothing, not because I enjoyed their misery, but because I realized what they had was never love, just selfishness dressed as romance. And I had escaped it. But escaping didn't mean I was unhurt. Late at night, nightmares still visited me. I dreamed I was in a wedding dress, standing at the altar, but Mike never came. Instead, Lily stepped forward, grabbed his hand, and they turned their backs on me. I would wake up gasping, heart pounding, as if it would tear out of my chest. Some nights, I clutched my pillow and cried in silence, afraid my sobs would disturb the neighbors. Still, I refused to let myself drown in darkness. I focused on my studies, applied for scholarships. Every night, after work, I opened my old laptop, writing essays, editing until dawn. I enrolled in online classes to improve my skills. Once, exhausted, I fell asleep at my desk, waking up with a keyboard imprint on my cheek. But instead of misery, I felt alive. I knew that every drop of sweat, every minute of effort, would pull me out of my family's toxic spiral. One afternoon, while unpacking, I found an old notebook, the one where I had written wedding plans with Mike. Each small sketch and note reminded me of a time I had trusted him completely. I sat for a long while, leafing through it, then quietly tore it apart. I threw the pieces into the trash without regret. That was no longer my future. My future awaited elsewhere, a place where I would stand strong on my own. And so, amidst lonely nights, I began to see tiny glimmers of light. An email confirmed my scholarship application had reached the final review round. A former teacher called to encourage me. One morning, I looked in the mirror and saw my eyes, still red from crying, but harder, more resolute. I realized I was no longer the girl left behind at the altar. Lily, Mike, my parents still tried to pull me back into their story, but I had made my choice. I would walk my own path, and this time, I would let no one control me. I had once thought that after so many storms, after so many seemingly irreparable breaks, my little family had finally found peace. But it turned out that peace was more fragile than I had imagined. It was like a calm lake, one small stone could fall, sending ripples that never seemed to end. And that stone, once again, fell into our already fractured marriage that night. Everything began with something seemingly small. I had just put the baby to sleep, the room quiet except for the soft, innocent breaths of my child. I stepped into the living room, planning to make myself a cup of tea and read a few pages of a book. But as I passed the study, I noticed light spilling out from under the door. He was there, sitting in front of his laptop, eyes fixed on the screen. His face was tense, fingers tapping rapidly as if afraid of missing something important. I gently pushed the door open. The moment he looked up and saw me, he jumped, hastily closing the laptop. I froze, heart pounding. Why did he feel the need to hide? That single act sparked a vague but haunting suspicion inside me. I forced a smile, trying to appear calm. "Working late?" I asked. "Yeah, just some urgent reports," he replied with a forced smile. Then he stood up, circling past me quickly, as if he wanted the conversation to end. I stayed silent, eyes following his every step. In that moment, a heavy weight settled in my chest, feeling I hadn't faced in a long time, a shadow creeping into our marriage, warning of the storm ahead. In the following days, I began to notice more. He often came home late, sometimes citing sudden work emergencies. His phone was always face down on the table, and whenever it buzzed, he would quickly grab it and step outside. I watched quietly, my heart tightening with every movement. Sleep became elusive. Many nights, I lay awake, staring at the dark ceiling, my mind racing with countless possibilities. Was he hiding something from me? Had he become close to someone else? Or was he seeking joy somewhere outside of this family? The more I tried to push it away, the more the obsession clung to me. Old memories resurfaced. I remembered those past days when I had been abandoned, when I had felt the icy sting of betrayal. I had vowed never to let myself endure that pain again. Yet the more I thought, the more afraid I became. One evening, I couldn't hold back. When he set his phone down in the kitchen, I quickly picked it up and scrolled. In the contacts, there was a name I had never seen before. The messages weren't explicit, just short exchanges, yet full of hidden meanings. "See you tomorrow. Be careful. Don't let anyone know." My hands trembled, sweat breaking out. I hurriedly placed the phone back where it had been, heart hammering. I didn't know whether to trust my eyes. Maybe it was just a colleague, maybe work. But why hide it? Why so secretive? When he stepped out, I stared at him for a long moment. I wanted to scream, to confront him right then. But my throat tightened, and words wouldn't come. I stayed silent, holding back my tears. A few days later, I finally couldn't bear it any longer. One evening, after the baby was asleep, I sat across from him in the living room. The yellow light cast a warm yet heavy glow. Summoning all my courage, I spoke. You're hiding something from me, aren't you?" He looked up at me. His eyes no longer held nonchalance or certainty. Instead, they reflected unease and helplessness. He was silent for a long moment, making my heart ache with every second. Finally, he sighed and spoke slowly. "I just want a little personal space. You manage me too much." In that moment, it felt as if someone had dumped a bucket of cold water over me. Personal space. What about the days I neglected myself for him, for the baby? What about my unfinished dreams? I had tried to understand, tried to do everything to hold this family together, and yet in his eyes, it was all just suffocating control. I bit my lip, trying to keep my voice steady. Personal space. For what? To message someone else behind my back. He froze, face blanching. You looked at my phone?" he asked, voice higher than usual. "Yes." I nearly shouted, tears spilling. "Because you hide everything. Do you think I don't see? Do you think I'm stupid?" The room seemed to sway in that instant. He was angry too, raising his voice. "You always suspect me. I just want a bit of freedom. Don't you understand that?" I cried. Tears poured out, releasing all the pain and humiliation I had bottled up for so long. I turned my face away, not wanting to look at him. A single question echoed in my mind. Is this the beginning of the end? The following days, the house became eerily silent. He spoke little. I remained quiet. We still lived together, still ate meals together, still cared for our child, but the distance between us grew. A chasm that seemed impossible to bridge. My child remained innocent, laughing and calling Daddy. Mummy. I looked at them, heartbreaking. I didn't want them to grow up in a cold household. But I didn't know how to change anything. Every night, I lay awake. Half of me wanted to let go to free myself from this cycle of suffering. But the other half wanted to try again, for the child, for what we once had. I was torn within my own thoughts, like a boat stuck in a whirlpool. One morning, I looked at myself in the mirror, face drawn and worn. I realized I couldn't keep living like this. I had to do something. I had to make a decision. The crisis had truly returned. And this time, I wasn't sure we had the strength to overcome it. After that fierce argument, our house sank into a suffocating silence. In the days that followed, we lived next to each other like strangers. He got up early for work. I took care of the baby and the meals, but there were no conversations, no gentle looks. Just endless silence, like a cold wall separating us. Many times, I would watch my child laugh and call out, "Daddy," "Mummy," and feel my heart tighten. I didn't want my child to grow up in a home filled with tension and quiet resentment. But I didn't know how to break the cycle. The feelings of abandonment and betrayal from the past returned to haunt me, keeping me awake at night. I tossed and turned, torn between letting go or trying to keep going. One afternoon, I took my child to the park. An elderly woman sitting nearby struck up a conversation. She looked at me for a long moment, then smiled. "Sweetheart, women often forget themselves while caring for their families. But if you don't learn to love yourself, how can you hold on to anyone else?" Her words hit me like a needle to the heart. For years, I had always put my husband and family first. I had abandoned my studies, turned down job opportunities, even neglected myself. I had believed that sacrificing like this was the right way to hold a family together. But what was the result? I was still seen as controlling, still pushed away. On the way home, I couldn't stop thinking about her words. Maybe it was time for me to learn a new way to live. That night, after the baby was asleep, I sat alone in front of the mirror. My reflection was tired, my eyes sunken, my hair messy. I realized how worn down I had become in this marriage. I made a decision. I had to change, not just for him, not just for the baby, but for myself first. The next day, I signed up for a morning yoga class nearby. I picked up my old novels again, the ones I had once loved but had abandoned long ago. I bought a few new outfits, not expensive, but enough to make me feel confident. At first, he seemed surprised by my changes. He noticed me leaving the house in workout clothes, sitting quietly to read instead of constantly cleaning. He said nothing, simply observed, and me. For the first time in years, my heart felt a little lighter. I slowly began to understand. For a marriage to survive, both people need to be themselves. If one person sacrifices too much, the relationship will eventually crack. One evening, while folding laundry, he walked in hesitantly. "You've changed," he said. I looked up. "Changed? For better or worse?" He gave a small smile. "Probably for the better. You seem calmer and more beautiful." His words made my chest tighten. How long had it been since I'd heard him speak like that? But instead of letting emotions take over, I smiled. I realized I need to live for myself too. I can't keep revolving my whole life around you and the baby. He was quiet for a moment, then nodded. I saw a glimmer of thoughtfulness in his eyes. Over time, I regained my balance. I stopped trying to control his every move. Where he went, what he did, I didn't interrogate him like before. I allowed him the personal space he needed, and at the same time, I created a small world for myself: books, yoga, friends, unexpectedly. When I stopped chasing control, he began sharing more. He told me about work, about the pressures he had once hidden. He came home on time more often, joining us for dinner. Of course, my doubts didn't disappear overnight. I still remembered those vague messages, still feared the past repeating itself. But I learned to ask questions calmly instead of lashing out. I stopped shouting or crying, choosing instead to listen and express my feelings openly. One day, I told him, "I don't need you to be perfect. I just need you to be honest with me. If you're tired, if you need space, tell me. Don't leave me guessing. Don't let me live in fear." He looked at me for a long moment, then sighed. "I'm sorry. I was wrong to make you doubt me. I just didn't know how to balance work, family, and myself." In that moment, I understood. It wasn't just me he was trapped in the marriage cycle too. He had pressures, desires, and needs of his own. When both of us forget ourselves, the family becomes a burden instead of a refuge. In the months that followed, our relationship slowly warmed. There were still bumps along the road, still cracks that hadn't fully healed. But at least we began to face them instead of avoiding them. One late evening, after the baby was asleep, we sat on the balcony. The night breeze was cool and refreshing. He looked at me, voice low. "I know I've hurt you so much. I also know one day you might decide to let go. But I really want to make things right. I don't want to lose this family." Tears pricked my eyes, and I turned away. I didn't answer immediately, but my hand brushed against his. It wasn't complete forgiveness, but it was a sign I was willing to give him a chance, as long as he truly tried. And so, we entered a new phase. A phase without the illusion that marriage is all rosy, but without giving up on it either. We learned to keep just enough space for each of us to be ourselves, while staying connected in responsibility and love for our child. I don't know what the future holds. Maybe one day all our efforts will crumble and we'll face an ending. But at least I can say this: I've learned the greatest lesson in marriage, that love cannot survive without balance between us and me. Some secrets, no matter how deeply buried, eventually rise to the surface. I used to think I had passed the darkest chapter of my marriage, that the new balance I'd been trying to build had saved our family. But it turned out that all of it was just a thin veneer, and when it cracked, the truth inside sent a chill down my spine. One evening, while I was preparing dinner, his phone buzzed on the dining table. I didn't intend to touch it, because I had promised myself I wouldn't control him anymore. But the screen lit up, showing a short message. "Are you sure she doesn't know?" I froze. My whole body went numb. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped the chopsticks I was holding. A cold wave ran down my spine. I tried to stay calm, continuing to cook as if nothing had happened, but in my head 1,000 questions raced through. That night, after he finished showering, I sat waiting at the table. I looked at him with an unusual calm. "Is there something you haven't told me?" He flinched slightly, avoiding my gaze. Then he forced a smile. "Are you doubting me again? I've told you, nothing's going on." But this time, I didn't let myself be pacified. I picked up the phone from the table and showed him the message I had just received. "So what's this?" The silence was so heavy I could hear the ticking of the wall clock. He looked at me, lips pressed tightly, saying nothing. That silence drove me insane. I pressed harder. "How long were you planning to keep this from me? Were you waiting for me to find everything out myself?" He sat down, burying his face in his hands. After a long silence that felt like a century, he finally sighed. "Okay, I'll tell you, but you have to promise. Don't make a scene in front of the child." I nodded, heart pounding, as if I were about to hear the death sentence of my marriage. "The truth is," he hesitated, eyes looking down, "I've been in contact with Lily." For a while, the words hit me like a knife, straight through my heart. I froze, mouth agape, unable to speak. "Lily," the name rang in my head like a death knell. He continued, voice trembling. "No, not now. It started back when our marriage was first struggling. Lily reached out, just checking in, encouraging me. Then, things gradually got closer. I jumped up, chair tipping over behind me. My whole body shook violently. You dare do this to me? After everything we've been through? After all the wounds you and she caused me?" He stood up quickly, reaching out to me, but I pushed him away. "No, don't touch me. Do you know who Lily is? She's my sister. She already stabbed me in the back once, and now, again." Tears streamed down my face like rain. Memories of the past flooded in. The day I discovered him and Lily sneaking around, the betrayal before our wedding. I thought it had ended when they got married, that all I had left was my pain. But no, they had never really cut ties. He stammered, "No, you misunderstand. I didn't cheat with her. It's just emotional support, a safe space to talk. I swear, there's nothing between me and Lily now." I laughed bitterly. "Emotional support? You think I'm stupid enough to believe that? The two of you betrayed me once, so how much faith can I put in your so-called support?" The air was so thick I could barely breathe. I ran into the bedroom, slammed the door, ignoring him pounding and pleading outside. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat beside my child, looking at their innocent sleeping face, my heart shattering. I had tried, sacrificed, learned to find balance, but in the end, all I got was lies. In the darkness, I asked myself, how many more times can I forgive? Is this marriage even worth saving? The next morning, I packed our things and took my child to my mother's house. I needed distance, space to think. When she saw me arrive with my child, She looked surprised but didn't ask much, just sighed softly. She hugged me like she did when I was little, and in her arms I cried, uncontrollably crying for all the years that had passed. In the following days, I cut off contact with him. He called, texted, apologized, begged, even came to the house, but I didn't answer. I knew I needed time to soothe the pain, to see things clearly. During that time, I talked a lot with friends who had witnessed my struggles from the start. They all advised, one betrayal is enough. Don't let yourself suffer anymore. But my heart wasn't easy to let go. I still loved him, even though that love was now full of scars. I still remembered the happy moments, still hoped some miracle could save our family at the same time. A voice inside me kept reminding me, if he truly valued me, he would never have let Lily back into our lives. A few weeks later, I decided to meet him, to hear his explanation one last time. We met at a familiar cafe. When he walked in, his face gaunt, eyes dark and tired, my heart still ached. He sat down, hands clasped tightly together. I'm sorry. I was really stupid. I shouldn't have kept things from you. But I swear, there's nothing beyond limits between me and Lily. I was just weak, looking for someone to listen, and she happened to be there. I looked him in the eye, voice catching. Do you realize what Lily has done to me? Do you know that even talking to her, even just for support, is a terrible betrayal? He lowered his gaze, unable to answer. I took a deep breath, speaking slowly. You say you want to keep this family, but you don't know how to value it. You say you need your space, but you filled that space with someone who once destroyed my life. You call it support, but for me, it's more than enough to let everything collapse. I stood up, tears flowing, voice firm. I need time. And this time, I'll decide for myself, not for you, not for anyone else. I turned my back, leaving him alone at the small cafe, surrounded by the crowd, yet utterly isolated. That night, I returned to my mother's house, holding my child close. For the first time in years, I felt a strange emptiness in my chest, painful, yet strangely liberating. Perhaps it was a sign that I was finally ready to face the truth. Sometimes, love alone is not enough to save a marriage. That night, after a long string of turbulent days, I sat by the bedroom window, looking out at the rain-soaked yard. The raindrops sparkled under the streetlights, reflecting a faint glow like fragments of memories I had tried to forget. A strange yet familiar feeling washed over me, a calm I had longed for all these years. He lay inside, on the bed, breathing evenly. I watched his face under the soft yellow light filtering through the curtains, feeling both distant and strangely close. There were moments when I thought I would never be able to trust that face again. But now, in this quiet moment, I realized I had come full circle, having endured all the pain. I had returned to this point, beside this man. I remembered the early days of our marriage. We were young, full of dreams. He used to hold my hand as we walked through small streets, promising never to let me cry. I believed that love was strong enough to overcome anything, but life wasn't as simple as those vows. Habits, responsibilities, pressures, temptations, they crept into every corner of our marriage. I became the suspicious one. He became the man who sometimes faltered. There were nights I screamed, questioned, even shattered dishes because I couldn't bear his silence. There were times he walked away, leaving me alone in a dark house, holding our child, feeling like the world was collapsing. And there were times I thought of leaving, packing my things, walking away from everything, but I didn't, because leaving him would mean leaving a family, leaving my innocent child who had done nothing wrong. I wasn't brave enough, or rather, I chose forgiveness not because he deserved it, but because I needed a chance for myself, chance to see a future instead of living in the past. After our final conversation, things changed. He looked me in the eye, no longer avoiding me. I no longer carried the old wounds to punish myself. We learned to listen to each other, little by little. Mornings came with him waking up early, making simple breakfasts, fried eggs, toast, a cup of coffee. He didn't say much, just placed the plate in front of me, smiling. And I understood that love didn't always need grand gestures. Sometimes it was in the small, everyday acts. In the evenings, after our child was asleep, we sat on the porch together, quietly sipping tea. No interrogations, no suspicions, just two people who had weathered storms, choosing to sit together in peace. Sometimes he talked about work. Sometimes I shared something I read online. These small, seemingly insignificant conversations became the threads reconnecting us. One day, dropping our child off at school, I heard, "Mom, Dad are so happy lately. I like being home with you guys much more than before." I teared up. Children are innocent but perceptive. My child had witnessed our arguments, seen me cry, and now he noticed the change. My child's happiness was the clearest measure of the peace I had been seeking. Life, of course, is never perfectly smooth. There were evenings he came home late, the scent of a new cologne making my heart race. Old suspicions threatened to resurface. I wanted to interrogate, to check his phone, but I took a deep breath and simply asked, "Where did you go?" He looked surprised, then answered calmly, "I went out to dinner with clients, a few co-workers too." "Do you want to see the messages?" I paused, then shook my head. I didn't want to return to the old patterns, checking, doubting, controlling. I wanted to trust him. And at that moment, I realized that trust isn't automatic. It's a choice. I had chosen to trust. That spring, we worked together to renovate our home, repainting walls, replacing curtains, planting flowers in the yard. I picked white roses. He chose sunflowers. Each morning, our child ran around watering the plants while we watched, smiling. I realized that happiness wasn't some distant luxury. It could simply be living in a house full of laughter, surrounded by loved ones. One evening, after our child was asleep, he hugged me from behind and whispered, "Thank you for not leaving me." I froze, tears falling. We had lost so much time realizing that sometimes all it takes is one person letting go of their pride, staying to save a relationship. That night, I sat by the window again, writing these words. Outside, the moon shone brightly, lighting up every branch and drop of dew. I smiled not because I thought our marriage was perfect, but because I understood that perfection doesn't exist. We were just two ordinary, flawed people choosing to walk together to the end. I had forgiven, and he had changed. Together, we had found peace, a simple, yet incredibly precious peace. And as I close this chapter of my story, I want to say this: peace isn't about never falling. Peace is when you fall, when you hurt, when you lose, but you can still stand up, wipe your tears, and smile as you continue living. Who knows what tomorrow will bring? We might argue again, we might face new challenges, but today, in this moment, I am at peace, and for me, that is enough.